Man, we got a good little hour or two. Today we do. Shooter, what's the word? What's the word? I had to get something on my stomach. I roll this weed on. So while I was at work, nothing wrong with that. While I was at work, motherfucking, they caught the fifth suspect in that Julio Foolio shit. Jennifer Lopez been named in the Diddy assault. Oh, for sure. Girl, we got a lot of shit going on today on this motherfucker. On this motherfucker. We gonna get into it, man. The other day, right, I went live. It was 6 people in here. You know, so we had a couple of trolls that probably ain't been on my page in a minute. They, oh man, CEE-HOOD, you fell off. You only got 6 people in here. Then an hour later, 300 something motherfuckers in here. And that live did 22,000 views. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I keep telling motherfuckers, YouTube is all about runs and momentum. You can get on this bitch one day and not do nothing, then the next day take off. It's all on your algorithm, the videos you put out, the titles, you know what I'm saying, when you going live. So a motherfucker who don't understand that, they only look at the numbers and shit. They look at the numbers and shit. They don't look at the real shit that's be going on, man. Y'all don't know this shit. And if y'all did know this shit, then y'all will shut the fuck up when y'all come on my page. And maybe you'll learn something. I'm trying to teach a motherfucker. Reach one, teach one. But it's like the more I try to teach you motherfuckers,
the more and more I get bewildered and dumb. And, you know what I'm talking about? For real, for real. So I know the real supporters. That's why I say I know motherfuckers that was around when it was only 2, 3 motherfuckers around. Uh, so that's why I don't be quick to throw out ranches to new motherfuckers and all that shit. I really don't give a fuck if you a moderator on somebody else's channel, and if you a moderator on somebody else's channel, that's good. You call networking. You know what I'm saying? I ain't telling you you can't go and mod for this person or mod for me, nigga. I won't do your thing. Do your thing, man. It ain't that serious with me. It's not that deep. It ain't that deep, y'all. So I don't be caring about who the fuck supposed to be you supposed to be over here moderating on my channel. Why you over there, man? Fuck all that shit, man. Fuck all that shit, Jack. Fuck it, Jack. Yeah, for sure, for sure. I don't give a fuck about none of that. That shit don't mean nothing to me, man. But with this Julio Foolio, man, he was on the run for a minute, man. I think he got tired of running and he ran out of resources. So he might as well go on here and fight that shit. They got his ass. Let's check it out, man. Let's check it out, man. Y'all know I like to watch videos along with y'all. Smoke and talk shit on life.
Duval County. Let's kind of get into the details a little bit.
We'll be there in the morning. Watch it. Actually, it's held back up together.
Suspect wanted for murder in Julio case arrested in Jacksonville. The suspect was arrested in the rapper's hometown Monday. He is the 5th person arrested in the case. Jacksonville, Florida. The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office arrested a 5th suspect in the murder of Jacksonville rapper Charles Jones, known as Foolio. The suspect not straight far away from Foolio's hometown. Davion Murphy, 27 years old, was arrested at an apartment on Label Street Monday night. J.S. Murphy wanted for murder.
Somebody most definitely told on his ass.
On June 26th in Tampa, which
probably the bitch he was laid up with. You know a bitch, hold on.
So when they took Buddy's mugshot,
yeah, so probably a bitch told on him. A bitch he was laid up with, hiding out with. They get into it, and you know a bitch, goddammit, they emotional. So the first thing she do, this just what I think, y'all. I could be wrong. First thing she do, I'm tired of you being here. You ain't brought no money in doing all this, woo all this. So that bitch figured she was gonna hurt him and got him locked up. I'm quite sure they had a reward out for this nigga. Whole time though, that bitch need to be getting locked up too, cause she was aiding and abiding this nigga. Don't cut that bitch off too. Don't cut her off too fast. That bitch just as guilty as him. And if that nigga going to jail, that bitch need to go to jail. Right. Cause bitch, you knew you was in that bitch laid up with a killer. You done seen this nigga face hella time on the wanted posters and shit.
Smiling and everything, like this is something to be proud of. And I believe out of do a little research on this one. He was the one bragging, talking about his thirst has been quenched and all of this crap and everything like that. Listen, for the most part, none of this crap is going to hit these people until later on down the road, 20, 30 years, when they realize that none of this crap is actually worth it. I can't find a single person who's been a gangbanger that I know that's been doing this stuff for 30, 40 plus years that I've talked to, and they said, oh man, I'm glad I sat up there and killed this person for this turf and for this hood and for these people and all that crap. They always talk about what they would have did differently. And in this instance, he may look like he's not remorseful and all this and everything like that, but understand, he's never getting out. The footage is in 4K. Actually, I believe this week, or next week, they're going to start the actual case. You know, we're going to do it on the main channel over there. But right now, man, they done caught this idiot. He was chilling in Jacksonville. So if you don't understand, let me help you understand. The one place you shouldn't have run away from, run to, pardon me, is the place where you're most known at. The one place you shouldn't have been in, this idiot was in there. So at the end of the day, we all gonna call them all type of dummies and all this crap and everything like that. But what a waste of opportunity in life at the end of the day. Because he don't give a damn. We ain't about to give a damn. We gonna sit up here and talk about this stuff and try to use them as an example to dissuade the youth, and I don't know if it will. Now, to be fair, across the United States, violent crime is down by 18% on some reports, 16% by some reports, and we know why. You cats is running out of options to kill, and y'all all going to jail. Technology is getting better.
That shit crazy.
The behavior of the common criminal has increased at max, which is seeing people get better at is scamming. But as far as taking people's lives and all of that stuff, that's still going to remain. Y'all got to realize, this whole entire case was captured by Tesla cars. Not only that, these morons text and all of this stuff with LPRs. You don't know what LPRs are? Those are license plate readers, which basically show the whole entire trip from Jacksonville all the way to Tampa. Doesn't get any. That being said, she's telling they all gonna be done. They all facing the death penalty. Will they get it? I don't think so, but it's Florida, bro. You never know. You truly never know. Hell, YNW Melly is facing the freaking death penalty in his case, which it makes sense because it's a double murder. But other than that, man, hey, y'all let me know y'all thoughts on this one. Do y'all think he wanted to be caught? Y'all think he just didn't care? Or he knew he was going to be caught, so parading around Jacksonville like he couldn't be touched? Shoot, it just made the most sense for him. Like, let me kick it with my people before I go. That could be the prime reason why he did what he did, but I don't know, bro. Jacksonville, I believe, is the biggest city in America as far as land-wise, whatever the hell and what you said. But other than that, yeah, nah, bro. You was only gonna get to chill in the hood. You ain't got no money. People taking care of you and all that crap and everything like that to turn you in for however many thousands. More than likely, somebody did it, or just good police work, which I doubt. But they always get caught, bro. Unless you know how to swim thousands of miles at a time, speak other languages, and change the pigment on your skin, you're getting caught. So, hey, good riddance. It is what it is. I don't have a dog in the fight, but when morons do moronic stuff, we just gonna leave it for what it is. Maybe he finds God and changes his life or something like that. Maybe the state decides, you know what, we're just gonna make an example out of you and take your life. I don't know, but that smiling stuff that he did, it ain't gonna look well to a judge. It's not gonna look well to the prosecutors, and it for sure ain't gonna look good to the jury. Now, maybe he just taps out and says, look, I'll take a life sentence, y'all don't take my life away. That possibly could be the reason why. But other than that, I don't know what the hell going on. Y'all let me know your thoughts on this one. Subscribe, turn on bells to notify, share to keep your people aware. I'll catch y'all in that next one.
What's really hood when I'm through the hood? Nothing be said, we got it overstood. The team fit, yeah, it's really good. Put that on everything, bro, you're never good. What's really hood when I'm through the hood? Nothing be said, we got it overstood.
How the fuck did I do that? was really hood when I'm in the hood. Seti Nash, man. He still gang banging, man. He still gang banging, man. Hold on. I'm finna get it to y'all, man. I should have been more prepared, but y'all know how this shit go.
Attorneys for Sean Diddy Combs are fighting a lot of battles on a lot of different fronts lately. Likely spent their holiday crafting motions to try to curtail the amount of legal action the disgraced music mogul is facing. But one of the strangest cases involves a Michigan prison inmate who claims that Combs raped him in the 90s. A judge initially granted a massive $100 million judgment in his favor, but after that was overturned, Derek Cardello-Smith is now pushing forward with his lawsuit, and he says he plans to call pop icon Jennifer Lopez as a witness. Welcome to Sidebar.
Whoa. What the fuck happened to Jennifer Lopez? Jennifer Lopez used to be fine than a motherfucker, man. This bitch look like a dead body now, man. Oh, everything I love. Maybe she did get that age in her neck all wrinkled and the bones and shit. How old is Jennifer Lopez now? Jennifer Lopez about every bit about 50. Damn this 55. Oh my mama, this bitch look a little funny, man. Damn, bitch. Damn, bitch. Come on, man. Y'all tell me, man, she don't look like, I don't know what the fuck she, bitch. You take the makeup off. Face looks strong than a motherfucker. That bitch got an Arnold Schwarzenegger face. On my mama, the bitch look like the Terminator now. That bitch look like the Terminator now, man. Let's see what this bitch got herself involved in, man.
Fine, I'm Jesse Weber. The legal battle involving Derek Cardello-Smith is one of the strangest parts of the saga of Sean Diddy Combs.
Dude ass was swole as hell. He said Diddy raped him.
Accused by the feds of forcing sex workers and others to participate in hours-long sex performances and orgies, sex trafficking, racketeering, transportation, to engage in prostitution, federal charges, and at the same time, Combs has also been accused in several civil lawsuits of drugging and raping people as far back as the 90s. The allegations come from both men and women, including some who say that they were just teens when they were targeted. And in the midst of a full incarcerated at Ernest C. Brooks Correctional Facility out in Michigan. Now, he has been convicted multiple times for criminal sexual conduct and kidnapping. Cardello-Smith appeared on a judge's live stream from prison representing himself to explain why he wanted an injunction against, out of all people, Sean Combs.
This is in the matter of Derek Lee Cardello-Smith, MDOC number 267009 versus Sean Combs, Sean Puff Daddy Combs, also known as Sean P. Diddy, also known as Diddy, Bad Boy Records, label owner, founder, also known as Puff P. Daddy, Bad Boy, Diddy Run the City, Sean Combs, also known as Sean Puffy Combs. And this is file number 24-7362NO. We'll grab your paperwork here real quick out of this other paperwork. We do have Mr. Cardello-Smith appearing from the Michigan Department of Corrections. Sir, where are you currently located?
I'm located at the Ernest C. Brooks Correctional Facility, 2500 South Sheridan Drive, Muskegon, Michigan, 49444, ma'am.
All right, thank you, sir.
Or your honor.
Thank you. So I do see that we do have a proof of service on Mr. Combs, but for purposes of this hearing, you filed a motion for a temporary restraining order and or a preliminary injunction to stop all sales of the property and assets attached to or involved with said property based on the interest of plaintiff and plaintiff's connections to defendant's sexual assault of plaintiff Derek Lee Cardello-Smith, requiring a preliminary injunction and/or a temporary restraining order.
By the way, when we're covering stories like this one, it is very important to bring you just the facts, not put any kind of slant or bias on that. We always try to do that at Law and Crime and Sidebar, but that is why we are so happy to partner with a company like Straight Arrow News. So this is an app and website that is focused on objective, unbiased reporting. As somebody who's always doing research for Sidebar, I know how easy it is to get lost in biased journalism, right? Well, Straight Hour News, they help us cut through that with tools like the Media Landscape, which shows where outlets fall on the political spectrum. We also have the Media Mist tool, highlighting stories that mainstream media might be skipping. So you can check it out for yourself for free. Use the tools to research at san.com/sidebar or click the link in the description. Supporting them means supporting journalists like us who are committed to delivering the truth.
Do you wish to argue the motion today, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you may proceed then.
Okay, the purpose of it is based on two actions taken by Mr. Combs himself, directly with me here. We did a live one-on-one visit in our prison visiting room. There's 2 meetings within the past 2 weeks with Mr. Combs on one meeting, and then a financial advisor on the other meeting on Mr. Combs' behalf. And he stated that he would make me an offer to end the case and what happened to me because of other things that he stated he has going on in his life that require his money right now, and he wants to sell everything off. And he made me a financial offer of $2.3 million to allow what happened to me to go away, and he stated that he's going to be selling his property, and under the 2005 California Civil Code 2881-2885, the creation of liens, which allows out-of-state justices and orders to cause a stop of any title transfer, property transfers in Los Angeles or any other place that he has property. He stated that he wouldn't be able to proceed with that sale. And
So this nigga locked up for kidnapping and rape, and you worrying about this nigga selling the cribs and shit. I guess he gotta have somewhere to go when he get out of jail in 10 to 20 years.
The day after I served him the suit. And he also said that he won't be filing an answer to the complaint. He said you can find me in default or whatever.
Carl, what's the word? What's the word? Just getting off work, sliding on for show, my boy. Man, y'all make sure y'all hit the like button, man. Get this video in the algorithm, man. Y'all think this shit easy. This shit hard. Getting on here every day. I don't be feeling like doing this shit, but I do it.
So I'm gonna hold on.
I'm sorry.
Cadella Smith. Okay, so you went in a different direction than I thought you were going into. I thought we were just gonna focus. No. You kind of went off in a different direction than what your actual motion was.
Yeah.
So what I just want to say is settlement negotiations.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
In this case, they're probably better not. Yeah, they're not to be placed on the record today. Okay.
I apologize.
No, it's okay. You're not an attorney. I understand that. So if we can just backtrack and focus just on your motion for here. Okay, thank you.
If he's allowed to sell his property that he has in LA and the properties that are in his name being used and held by other people in Michigan, then it will cause me harm because I can be tied directly to those properties through loans and through other areas of investment that I did when I was out there and while in prison through money that I've sent. And if he's allowed to go through with any of the sales, I won't be able to recoup any of my monies or anything from them as a result of any possible judgment in this action, if he's allowed to proceed with it. And an injunction or restraining order would help ensure that he's not manipulating and selling the property to avoid his responsibility in these matters here. That's what a temporary restraining order would do. It would prevent that from happening. Because it's a very serious matter. It involves a lot of money. And him selling this would help him avoid his liability for these actions done upon me. And I was just hoping that I'd be able to get the restraining order to prevent that. There won't be any harm to him, any of the parties. There won't be any harm to him in any way. And if it's deemed that it's not justified, then he can go ahead and go through with the sale at the end of the case. But one has to be put in place to stop this from happening.
Okay, okay, so, thank you very much.
Yes.
So I received your complaint and all the attachments to it. And then I received this motion. And I just wanted to take a moment to review back through the U.S. District Civil Docket and your complaint. So I did do that. That's all. And,
Yes. Okay.
Anything else?
Everything that you're looking at, they're all tied in together. Every part, as crazy as this seems, as outrageous as it seems, it all ties in. Every bit of it, every facet.
Okay. All right. Well, I have a proof of service showing that Mr. Combs was served on July 6th of 2000 and, let me see, is that 24?
Yes, Your Honor.
Looks like it. 2024.
So that was August of 2024, and a month earlier in July, Combs had put his house in the Holmby Hills part of Los Angeles up for sale, and the judge agreed to issue an injunction preventing Combs from selling the property for 90 days while the rest of the case played out. And in the complaint against Combs, Cardella Smith asked for $100 million, claiming Combs drugged and raped him during a party in Detroit in 1997. He also alleges that Combs filmed the assault. And we've also learned through separate filings that Cardella Smith claims that Combs allowed him to invest in bad boy records if he took the blame for a rape case and went to prison. And get this, since Combs seemingly didn't respond to the summons, the judge issued a default judgment against him. That means $100 million was awarded to Cardella Smith. Unfortunately for him, it would not be for too long because Combs' attorneys quickly responded with emergency motions saying they had no idea that this lawsuit was even going on or who Cardella Smith was. So the default judgment was set aside and the case carries on. Now, Mark Agnifilo, who is Combs' lawyer in his federal criminal case, said this is a frivolous lawsuit against a prominent businessman based on obvious fabrications filed by a convicted rapist and serial litigant with an overactive imagination and a thirst for fame. Well, since then, Cardella Smith has been hard at work from inside prison, filing document after document after document with the court. I am talking, by the way, hundreds and hundreds of pages of arguments, case law, exhibits. In fact, he is filing so many documents in so many different courts that he seems to be having trouble keeping things like dates and locations straight. And look, in those filings, he's doing his best to, stick to the legalese and facts of the case. But remember, he is representing himself. He's not an attorney. But he ends up using a lot of underlining, all caps, exclamation points. I said it before, I'll say it again. The fact that he was initially awarded the $100 million, you got to give him credit, right? But look, he is not shy about what he has to say. For example, how about this quote from his proposed 250-page answer to the defendant's motion to dismiss? Defendant Sean Combs is a fake gangster hiding behind his money and his lawyers, and most importantly, his enforcers, who knows that he has committed multiple acts of fraud, and it has been an ongoing thing. His fraud is eternal, and his entire empire was built on rape, torture, being a fake gangster, rapist, brutal, power-hungry, greedy millionaire, and quite simply, he is not a man. Wow. And remember, Combs says he doesn't even know who Cardella Smith is. And we have to be clear about something. Sean Combs has never been criminally charged for rape or sexual assault per se. And as far as the federal charges, he hasn't been found guilty. And for all the lawsuits, he hasn't been found liable in any of them as well. Now, he has entered a not guilty plea in federal court. He strongly denies any of these allegations. But who is this Derek Cardella Smith character, right? And how, by the way, does Jennifer Lopez fit into all of this? Well, according to the Michigan Department of Corrections, Cardella Smith is serving a decades-long prison sentence at a correctional facility near Muskegon. In 1998, Cardella Smith was convicted of 2 counts of third-degree sexual conduct. He was paroled, and while out, prosecutors say he committed more sexual offenses. He was convicted in 2008 on 6 counts of first-degree criminal sexual conduct and 2 counts of kidnapping. pled no contest in that case. And then in 2019, he was convicted of 4 counts of first-degree criminal sexual conduct. And according to the Department of Corrections, the earliest release date for him is 2036. So Cardelo Smith, by the way, has appealed all of those convictions over the years and says that he was falsely accused of rape in 1998, that he was set up by police. And by the way, in his filing against Combs, Cardelo Smith also claims that there is collusion, that there is a conspiracy afoot, saying and alleging that Detroit police covered up his rape at Combs' instruction. And that is not even the wildest claim in this lawsuit, so let's dig into it. On December 9th, Cardelo Smith filed a notice of submission of material witnesses and named 3 people: New York police officer Derek Palmer, former Combs employee Kirk Burroughs, and pop superstar Jennifer Lopez, J-Lo, who dated Combs from 1999 to 2001. And possibly one of the most memorable headline-making moments of the relationship came in December of 1999 when Combs, Lopez, Combs' bodyguard Anthony Wolf Jones, and rapper Jamal Shine Barrow were involved in an argument in a New York City nightclub that led to gunshots. All 4 were arrested on charges after they left the club in a car. Police pulled them over after they ran a red light. A gun was found lying in the car in full view, according to police reports. And the weapon, turns out, had been reported stolen out in Georgia, and none of the people in the car had a license for the gun. Now, the charges against Lopez, they were dropped, and after a trial in New York, Combs and his bodyguard were acquitted. Shine, though, was found guilty of criminal possession of a weapon and first-degree assault. He was acquitted on the charge of attempted murder, and he served nearly 9 years for his charges. He since said that Combs was the one who actually fired the shots, and he took the fall for him. But going back to Cardelo Smith's filing, his notice says that Jennifer Lynn Lopez, a.k.a. J-Lo, a.k.a. Jenny from the block, quote, will be called as a material witness and expert to Sean Combs' viewing, possession, and distribution of his sexual assault upon the plaintiff in 1997, and the orders of defendant Sean Combs forcing Jennifer Lopez to remain silent about the videotaped sexual assault of plaintiff by defendant. Plaintiff states that the material witness Jennifer Lynn Lopez, also known as J-Lo and Jenny from the block, was engaged in a relationship with the defendant Sean Combs during 1999 and 2001, and that the sexual assault of the plaintiff was recorded, distributed, and held by the defendant at his New York residence and recording studio. And during the relationship with Jennifer Lopez, she was made privy to this video that was taken by Sean Combs and his employee Kirk Burroughs. She, J-Lo, has known this video existed and was in existence and took no action to make it known to anyone in law enforcement, and that she was even questioned by New York Police Detective Derek Palmer about this matter, and that the report will show that her answers to this tape was and still remains a resounding yes to its existence. And again, Cardelo Smith writes that he wants to call Officer Derek Palmer as a witness because he says Palmer is the one who questioned Lopez and believes that he will have testimony that could help his case. Now, as I mentioned, Diddy's legal team has called for this entire case to be thrown out. Cardelo Smith has filed a massive response to that request that totaled more than 200 pages. Probably half of it was just straight up copies of case law that seems to support his arguments, word for word. It's something out of like a legal textbook. There's so much to slog through, but I kind of want to give you some of the highlights. So first, in addition to the claims of rape and a cover-up, Cardelo Smith also claims and alleges that Combs was violent towards his loved ones. At times, Cardelo Smith addresses alleged threats against his family. Other times, he says Combs actually caused serious injuries to his brother. His response reads, defendant used threats of murder to force the plaintiff to not bring the case to any court of law enforcement until the homes of the defendant were raided by Homeland Security, that the plaintiff knew it was a safe time to bring the case, and that is why we are here at this juncture. And Cardelo Smith argued that fear for his own safety and the safety of his family is one of the main reasons that he waited so long to report the alleged rape, and says that that reason alone should override any issue with this statute of limitations, that these claims might otherwise be time barred. And he also argues that while he's been in prison, fellow inmates and prison guards have threatened him on behalf of Sean Combs. Quote, plaintiff states that the court cannot authorize the dismissal of these claims because to do so would mean that the plaintiff was time barred because the plaintiff did not want to take any action that could have resulted in the death or danger of his family, friends, or their family by filing this report until after Homeland Security got involved. And if this court does not grant dismissal of this claim, then it would be instructing the defendants of a sexual assault claim brought by a plaintiff to threaten to kill the victim's family members, and then they would be able to get away with it. And that is most certainly this court authorizing murder. Wow.
So I'm finna ask, do y'all believe this shit, man? Dude look like he about 6'3", 250 pounds and you let Diddy penetrate you, I don't know, man. But then we don't know because Fat Joe did say that it was a gay mafia. This what Fat Joe said. He said, I believe it's a gay mafia in the hip hop industry, and we don't even know about it. Like, who the fuck is this nigga? I'm looking at it, all these motherfuckers coming out, Jeannie Deal, the other celebrity. I'm looking at all these niggas coming out, right? And saying all this shit, man. Y'all was working with these niggas for years. And y'all come out with this shit, man. I feel like the government, I really do feel like the government, when I say the government, I'm talking about the feds, the CIA, shit like that. Them type of branches of police enforcement. I think they put them niggas around them niggas. That's why they called it the hip hop police. Jeannie Deal, the other big homie nigga, celebrity nigga, all them niggas, man, is motherfucking niggas who didn't make the police force and become FBI agents, and they didn't pass the bars, and you feel what I'm saying, for all that shit. Out of shape. So let's go get this security shit and we can goddamn it start this. But them niggas, if y'all get what I'm saying, basically, man, them niggas was police, man. They just didn't make the squad. That's why you got all these niggas running around here doing all this telling and shit. These niggas be the police. For real, for real. A lot of these niggas ain't made this shit. They didn't make it. So you think these niggas ain't gonna get out here? If a nigga can get out here and tell y'all was doing security for this nigga and supposed to been so faithful and loyal that y'all wasn't supposed to told none of his secrets or none of that shit. Not to say that, I'm just saying, like, if they're the type of people that's gonna be around you and you trust somebody, then they should never be coming to the internet doing all this shit. You know what I'm saying? They shouldn't be doing all that, man. But I just don't believe Buddy ass was getting tampered with. I don't think he got tampered with by P. Diddy. When I say tampered with, he got took down. I don't believe so. I think it's a cap, man. I think it's a cap.
And when it came to threats, by the way, Cardell Smith swears that Combs visited him in prison on August 28th, 2024. Though that is just days before his arrest on September 16th. In fact, he claims that Combs visited him multiple times in prison. And that the visitor logs and the security video.
You say a Glock with a switch or a 357, I'm going to take the 357. Why? Because I don't shoot from a block away or all that shit, nigga. When you shoot a motherfucker, you supposed to get up on the motherfucker and get the motherfucker you looking for. All that shooting from a block away, that's scary nigga shit, man. On everything. You don't know who you can hit. You can hit a little kid in the window or something, man. You can't control no motherfucking gun. A lot of these niggas ain't never been on no drills. And when not to say, hey y'all, I'm just talking for YouTube, y'all. So anything I'm talking about, man, is from me seeing it around in the neighborhood, or, you know what I'm saying, my personal knowledge and education. Not to say that I have ever participated in anything in that type of crime. But I'm saying, if a motherfucker was to do the shit, you supposed to run up and get your victim. You know what I'm saying? For real, for real. So yeah, I'll take a 357 over the Glock with the switch. Cause what if you do run up on the block and niggas got guns out there? You hit the nigga you looking for, they make it to their gun. You done shot the whole fucking, the Glock with the switch, you done shot that and all the bullets. You ain't got nothing to make it back to where the fuck you came from so you can get out of there. You can't even throw no shots back. That's what I'm saying. So with that, that's a 5, 6 shots. You come dump 3 and you skip off with the other 3. You hear what I'm saying? You come dump 3 shots and you skip off with the other 3. So a nigga won't, you know what I'm saying? Y'all don't know, man. I can tell you about being in the trenches and surviving the trenches, man. I've been shot, been stabbed, all that shit, nigga. I've been in them motherfucking Young and Ace with punk. Man, Young and Ace will get the shit slapped out of him, man. And this no offense to him or anything. He'll get the shit slapped out of him, man. You can go to any city in America. It's tough niggas in every city in America. Every city in America. It's certain cities that you can't play with because niggas will kill your ass. Niggas will slap the shit out you. Niggas will have you in the trunk, have your ass in the woods somewhere in the forest preserve, leaking, getting ate up by vultures and shit, nigga, coyotes. You niggas don't know nothing about that shit, man. Like I told y'all, when I was 13, nigga, it was like 4, 5 of us. And we hung with older niggas. So I was on the block seeing all type of shit that I never was supposed to see. I was supposed to be a child at 10, 11, 12, 13 years old. On everything. I could sit right here and say, I've been getting pussy for 28 years. 28 years, nigga. Y'all ain't been getting no pussy, man. Y'all can't tell me about no pussy. Y'all can't tell me about life. No gang shit. None of that shit. Y'all would never be able to tell me about that shit. Cause I've been doing this shit for a very long time. Now, we could give each other pointers and talk like that, but to tell me something, no, man. A lot of y'all ass be crazy, man. And you talking about a nigga coming here and doing this. That nigga ain't even been, goddamn it, around to see half the shit I done saw. Come on, man. Stop playing with me, man. What it is you niggas is hoes. And you niggas be bitches. And you niggas be terrified of niggas and shit like this. So you project your fear on another individual when really the way that you saying and doing this shit, you expressing yourself and you putting your reactions and your behavior on another individual. You know why? Because you don't know how to take accountability on life. Accountability. I'm finna start putting my lives on members only too, man. Y'all gonna have to pay for this shit. I ain't finna be giving y'all the game. The game is to be sold, motherfucker. Not to be told. We can get on here one day, be on some cool player, laid back shit. Then the next day we doing something, we tweaking. The game is to be sold and not to be told on everything. You niggas gonna have to start breaking bread. I'm gonna put this shit on members only. And we can see. I can't be giving you, because I give y'all this information. You know what y'all do? Some of y'all take it and y'all implant it in y'all plans and y'all exceed. But a lot of you motherfuckers, that shit go in one ear and out the other ear. You niggas don't got no guidance no more. You need a motherfucker to teach you and show you and point you to the direction to go do this shit and how to do this and say this shit. You need guidance. And it ain't nothing wrong with that. That's why I'm here. So you motherfuckers can start paying a little bread, checking me on my members only. You hear what I'm saying? And getting this game. Getting this motherfucking game, man. I be trying to put y'all on shit. You niggas don't listen, man. A lot of shit I say 4-5 months down the line, the shit come to purpose and y'all get to seeing. The fuck? The fuck? Stop playing with me. Swear to God. On my mama. So you saying Young and Ace is scary to me. I think he's scary to everyone. I think you terrified of that nigga. I think, you know what I think? I think, goddammit, you brung him up because he intimidates you in some type of form. Or it's 3 possibilities here. He might intimidate you. You might want to be like the nigga. Or you gay. You attracted to the nigga. That's what I believe. I think the third one is that fits you because you got a dumbass name on here. So I think you might be attracted to him. That's why you brung him up. And then the way for you to talk about him and the things that you saying about this man is like you want to argue with and debate with me. Like, nigga, nah, you saying this what you sound like. You sound like a female. You Young and Ace can do this. And Young and Ace can do that. You know how a female be like, my man do this. And my man do that. That's how you sound. Typing. So me reading it and translating it and understanding it in my head, I'm telling you, then you got a weird name. You might be Zesty. Your name Egg Balls. Why would you make that your name on YouTube? You trying to troll, but your way of trolling is expressing yourself. You very flamboyant. Look, he trying to change the subject and come with some new ideas. But let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. You need to talk to somebody about this, man. You can't keep hiding. It's 2025. Them niggas ain't in the closet no more. Come out. Come out. I got gay motherfuckers at my job. At my first job. At my second job, if they gay, they don't show it. But I still got some goddamn, I got my eyes saying a couple of their ass might be zesty. On the low side. Yeah. You want to suck Young and Ace dick. That's all. You a groupie. You want to suck his dick. You want to go in and be in the section with him while he popping bottles. You want to take a picture with him. You want to hang with him. You might as well get a tattoo. Get a tattoo on your face. A Young and Ace. Every morning you wake up, strive to be like Young and Ace. Just look at the tattoo on your motherfucking face. I told y'all that nigga was zesty. I told y'all that nigga was zesty and he want, man, I told y'all. I just told y'all this nigga was zesty. And he was really trying to do that. Then he turned around and say, he handsome.
We'll prove it. But he also claims that evidence is being buried. So according to Cardell Smith, Combs threatened him on that day in August, saying, quote, "What up, N-word? So I see you have been getting my messages, and your family has too. That is good, and they can keep it that way by staying quiet. I am untouchable, N-word." And Cardell Smith even went so far as to accuse some of Combs' attorneys of helping him cover up these crimes. He says he believes attorneys from the law office of Fink Bressac and Sher Tremonte should have their licenses reviewed for possible disbarment. He wrote, "It is terrible because they are hiding behind their law licenses to do these deplorable acts, and one can only say that for them to defend a rapist, thief, fraud, manipulator, extortionist, sadist, fake gangster such as Sean Combs and get a paycheck for it and do it with a straight face and then sleep at night, well, it makes them just as worse as their client, and it is deplorable. And I reject every single word they have said and every statement they have made in their motion to dismiss because they are liars and just wrong and misusing the laws to lie to this court and help Mr. Sean Combs get away with his rape." Attorneys on behalf of Sean Combs have filed multiple documents that call Cardella Smith's assertions transparently false, stating in a filing once again, plaintiff seeks to persuade this court that he is the subject of an ever-growing conspiracy to frame him and cover up an alleged assault. The lawyers allege that affidavits, transcripts, other exhibits reportedly from people with connections to Combs are just fake documents. For example, one of the documents names Catherine Preston as defendant's agent, but according to Combs' attorneys, Catherine Preston is an intimate associate of plaintiff, whom plaintiff refers to as his wife. They also point out that, quote, "The additions to the proposed response are elaborations
Yeah,
on plaintiff's
dude, that's
conspiratorial
he
narrative,
just putting
including the
anything
claim the
together.
defendant, again Sean Combs, must have had plaintiff's mother killed because the coroner listed her cause of death as undetermined." And they end by saying that even if every single claim that Cardella Smith was making in his amended response was true, his claim is time barred by the statute of limitations, and therefore all of this is moot. Now, so far, no word from the judge on whether Cardella Smith's amended response will be accepted by the court or not, but should be interesting to see. And in the meantime, Combs' legal team is also asking the court to sanction Cardella Smith for his frivolous lawsuits, or for what they claim are frivolous lawsuits.
I
They
bet.
want to keep him from filing any more of them. They state this is not plaintiff's first attempt at a shakedown, and unless this court intervenes, it will not be his last. Plaintiff has a lengthy history of filing frivolous lawsuits in this district and beyond. A PACER search reveals that plaintiff appears on the caption in 173 lawsuits and appeals in the Sixth Circuit and its district courts. The overwhelming majority, if not all, of plaintiff's cases have been dismissed as meritless. Still, he has continued filing. Numerous judges have admonished plaintiff to stop litigating. Plaintiff has ignored them. But we shall see if this is another case that gets thrown out, or maybe it will progress. Time will tell.
All right, now look, right. The lawyer saying they didn't know nothing about early in the thing. This is where they be fucking up with the paperwork. They saying they didn't know nothing about the lawsuit. So that's why they didn't reward him the $100 million. But now they saying, oh, he study filing and doing all this stuff, even after judges have told him to stop. They told on themselves. I just want to point that out to y'all. That they said early in the show that they said that they didn't have no idea he had a lawsuit or didn't even recognize or know him. But then before it's going off, they sneak it in and say the lawyer said he constantly doing this. And we got cases against him that we have already, the judges that said stop doing it. He ignoring them. It's crazy.
We have for you right now here on Sidebar, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify.
With a fortune of over $2.5 billion, Jay-Z is the wealthiest music artist in the world. He's also been named by Billboard and Forbes
Damn,
the greatest
Jay, they
rapper of
finna
all
get you,
time,
Jay.
with the most #1 albums of any soul artist in any genre ever.
According to Forbes, Hov is officially the first hip-hop artist to become a billionaire, and it's all thanks to his many business endeavors.
Involved with countless lifestyle companies, media outlets, liquor.
How they gonna call him the first one? You had Russell Simmons. Russell Simmons didn't touch $1 billion though. Kanye West touched $1 billion, then they snatched that shit from him. Diddy had $1 billion. Diddy ain't no billionaire? Hell no, Diddy ain't no billionaire. Somebody tell me if Diddy a billionaire. I think Diddy is a billion. He was a billionaire. They snatched it from him. Jay-Z a billionaire. Let this nigga do anything wrong. Well, that's why they on his ass right now, y'all. Every time a black motherfucker touch $1 billion, look how they doing. Look how they did Bill Cosby.
brands, and even a $400 million music streaming service in his portfolio, he redefined what money, power, and success looks like for celebrities and entertainers, while also earning himself exhibits at museums and libraries for his artistic achievements at the same time. But
Appreciate you, Young and Mel, for sure. Shout out to Young and Mel, man.
Profoundly infrequently, letting mystery take the place in public appearances and musical output. But now the spotlight is back on him. Several recent accusations have painted him in a different light than ever before, not as an icon to look up to, but instead a reminder of the darkness of the entertainment industry and all the ways it exploits its victims. Even before now, though, Jay-Z's carefully constructed narrative of an inspiring rags to riches story has begun to unravel. What once looked like a story of entrepreneurial success now reveals itself as a cautionary tale about the corrupting influence of wealth, power, and greed. As more unsettling truths
Y'all think
emerge,
Jay-Z got a sew in, man?
Jay-Z that's been presented over the years.
Y'all think that's a
Really
weave?
A corrupt and greedy liar, one of the greatest artists of all time, or maybe something in the middle. In Brooklyn, New York, in 1982, a 12-year-old named Sean Carter shot his older brother in the shoulder for stealing a piece of...
Damn, Jay. Look at Jay-Z, man. Come on, man. I fuck with Jay-Z on the rap side. But you was ugly than a motherfucker, man. I ain't gonna need... Jay, you was ugly, G.
Jewelry from his dresser. Not that he had wanted to.
Maybe that's a bad pitch.
He didn't think he had any other choice. His brother was addicted to crack and had stolen Sean's ring so he could pawn it for drug money. Understandably, it's a scary situation for any kid in middle school. Many years later, Sean Carter, then going by Jay-Z, said this: "My brother was dealing with a lot of demons. He was doing a lot of drugs. He was taking stuff from the family, and I was the youngest, but I felt like I needed to protect everybody else." He later explored this moment in the lyrics of a song he would write for his album In My Lifetime Volume 1, his second studio record, which would go on to be certified platinum not long after its release. He apologizes to a number of people in his life, including his brother he shot, saying the lyrics,
"Try to justify this in my young mind, but the adrenaline and my ego hurt combined drove me berserk. So the devil in your eyes, high off more than weed. Confused, I just closed my young eyes.
Squeeze.
What a sound, open my eyes just in time to see you stumbling to the ground."
Ultimately, his brother wasn't angry. They even reunited the next day in the hospital, but it's a sign of a bad situation that happened to begin with. Not only did he have access to guns at the age of 12, but he knew how to use them, and he was even in a situation where he ended up using it against his own family. The Marcy projects that Jay-Z grew up in were known in the 1980s as one of the most dangerous and drug-ridden places in America, at a time when New York as a whole was suffering badly from violence, the crack epidemic, and widespread poverty. People who could leave got out as quickly as they could, and they didn't look back, spreading to surrounding cities and states, and the people who couldn't suffered the consequences. Brooklyn at the time was a landscape full of abandoned buildings, empty lots, and industrial waste, smog, and darkness. A photographic survey from the early 80s...
Hey, hit the like button. Hit the like button for me real quick, y'all. Hit that like button. And subscribe to the page if you're not subscribed, man.
With giant piles of garbage and row homes with the windows busted out and the doors boarded up. New York City wasn't the outrageously expensive home to rich college kids, finance guys, and billionaires that it is now. In fact, when Jay-Z was in middle school, over 2,000 people were murdered every year in New York, about 1,000% more than 2023. New York at the time was dirty, dark, and falling apart. People who lived in the city back then later talked about this era in New York's history by saying things like, "The crumbling sadness was so vast that it seemed the city would never turn around." And this wasn't just affecting the world around Jay-Z. It was a big factor in his life at home as well. The story of him shooting his brother was one of many moments in his early life that set him on the path to become a product of his environment. His father had abandoned him and his 3 older siblings when Jay-Z was 11 years old, which Jay-Z would later describe as a traumatic moment in his life that changed him forever. He later said, "Kids look up to the pop like Superman. Superman just left the crib. That's traumatic. He was a good guy, but he didn't handle the situation well. He handled it so bad that you forget all the good he did. As you can see, I'm a grown man, but it's still here with me. I'd say I changed a lot. I became more guarded. I never wanted to be too attached to anything and get it taken away again. I never wanted to be too happy or mad. And it affected my relationships with women, too." But later on, Jay-Z realized that in the type of environment they lived in, even his own father wasn't entirely at fault for the way his life went and the things that happened to him. He later said, "When I was 9 years old, my dad's brother got stabbed, and my dad went looking for the guy who did it. People would call in the middle of the night and tell him, so-and-so is out there. So my dad would get up and go outside to look for the guy. After a while, my mom was like, hey, this is your family now, you can't do that. But this was my dad's baby brother. And so my dad was in so much pain that he started using drugs and became a different person. I understand that the trauma of the event, coupled with the drugs, caused him to lose his soul. The story goes that after his father had left, Jay-Z's mother tried as hard as she could to keep him out of trouble, buying him speakers and boomboxes to listen to his favorite music whenever he wanted, feeling like that was the best way to keep him out of trouble and under her supervision. Knowing what usually happened to kids who went outside without adults around in New York, she wanted to keep him in the house. In school, he was a talented student who scored very high on standardized tests, attending the same school in Brooklyn as Busta Rhymes and Biggie Smalls. But at the same time, the pull of the world outside took hold and started to push him in a dark direction. He later said, I saw a guy get shot when I was 9 years old. And he wasn't even a bad guy. His name was Benny. He was the guy who took us to play baseball. We always believed he could have made it to the major leagues. He was that good. But some guy was chasing him, and then I heard a shot and saw him on the floor. With his mother trying to raise 4 kids on the salary of a bank secretary, it became a struggle to look after and pay attention to all of her children.
Hit the like button, hit the like button.
Father in his life, the only role models left to look up to.
Yeah, I knew what you was talking about, young and male.
Crack, and at that point, the pull of the streets began to take hold. Many years later, he would be quoted as saying that there was no other way. Surrounded by poverty, addiction, and homelessness in his community,
What's the word? What's the word? Hola, como está?
Selling crack when he was 13 years old and dropped out of school by the time he was 16. But the full extent to which he dealt drugs, who he sold them to, and the beliefs he took away from that experience have remained a strange and confusing chapter in Jay-Z's life ever since, defining his character years before he was ever a best-selling rapper, business executive, or record label president. Jay-Z wouldn't officially become Jay-Z until he was 26 years old. Until that point, Sean Carter spent over a decade moving crack in large quantities across state lines, getting caught in shootouts, losing friends, and risking his life on a daily basis as he moved product all over the East Coast from New York to Virginia, Maryland, and beyond. This time in his life served as the basis of his creative career and musical storytelling later on. But still to this day, this chapter of Jay-Z's life presents a strange, confusing dynamic when it comes to the reality of Sean Carter versus the character he plays in public. Later on, talking about how and why he got into drug dealing, he said this: no one aspires to be a drug dealer. You aspire to the lifestyle you see around you. You see the green BMW, the prettiest car you've ever seen. You see the trappings of drug dealing, and it draws you in. But the actual statistics of the early days of the crack epidemic, right when Jay-Z got involved, are disturbing and sad. Between 1984 and 1989, the homicide rate for black males aged 14 to 24 increased by double. During this period, the black community also experienced a 20 to 100% increase in fetal death rates, low birth weight babies, weapons arrests, and the number of children in foster care. Crack cocaine use and distribution became popular in cities that were in a state of social and economic chaos, such as New York, Los Angeles, and Atlanta, and particularly in their low-income inner neighborhoods with high African-American concentrations. As a result of the low skill levels and minimal initial resource required to sell crack, systemic violence flourished as a growing army of young, enthusiastic crack sellers attempted to defend their economic investment. In addition, the number of Americans in prison massively spiked between 1980 and 2000. Basically, crack made life worse for everybody on all sides. Point being, Jay-Z was part of a very dark moment in modern history, and he was one of the very lucky few individuals who got to walk away from it and live a new life after. But Jay-Z has maintained for a long time that his experiences as a teenager shaped him, taught him integrity, and he even said, I wouldn't want to grow up any other way. He often claimed in the past that dealing drugs gave him a code of honor and integrity that doesn't exist in the music industry, saying things like, it's tough for people like us to get along with music executives. We're coming from a place where there's integrity, there's honor, there's unwritten rules. Meanwhile, in the music industry, kids inherit stuff from their parents and don't appreciate it. For me, I can think, I'm never going back to not being able to pay my light bill, my stomach growling, or eating cereal at night. And so the image Jay-Z created around his drug dealing has been complicated and oftentimes contradictory. The numbers don't lie. Crack dealers killed their communities, but Jay-Z painting it as honorable work that made him a stronger, more honest person is a controversial idea to say the least. He's even told stories about how he learned financial intelligence from dealing drugs, saying things like, I learned about budgets and finances from selling crack. When asked if he felt guilty about contributing to a nationwide drug epidemic, He later said, "Not until later on did I realize the effects on my community. In the beginning, I was thinking about improving my situation, buying clothes and cars." Many people have pointed out the strange hypocrisy of Jay-Z's perspective on drug dealing over the years. Most recently, sports writer Jason Whitlock made a controversial series of posts satirically describing Jay-Z's discussions of his dealing in a clearly exaggerated way that still highlights just how strange Jay-Z's comments about drug money making him a better person really were. He tweeted things like, "When Jay-Z sold drugs, he checked IDs and made sure no kids were involved. He didn't sell to parents. He honored a code. He was the honorable drug dealer." He also said, "My understanding is Jay-Z only sold to users over 18. You had to have 2 forms of ID to buy from Jay. A very honorable drug dealer. He would often clasp the hand of a buyer and say a little prayer after completing the deal." These comments were clearly sarcastic, Jason Whitlock even saying it was a joke after. But it's still a real reminder of the complicated discussion around Jay-Z's life before music. Creating a narrative that selling drugs made you a better person when you were dealing in the middle of a nationwide epidemic that killed hundreds of thousands of people doesn't point to Jay-Z having the greatest self-awareness or morals, but still, that was just the start. And while Jay-Z's philosophies about crack dealing might be questionable, that's not the only reason his past has stayed under scrutiny even to this day, because many people still can't quite seem to agree on whether or not he ever sold drugs at all. Being a rapper, it's easy to create a character around yourself that may or may not be true at all. Maybe Jay-Z learned about the life of a drug dealer from people around him, but didn't really do it himself. Rick Ross, for example, in reality was a college-educated guy who spent years working as a correctional officer, but he made a huge career out of pretending to be a drug dealer in his music, even stealing his name from an actual real-life infamous drug dealer in LA who later sued him. The scale Jay-Z claims to have sold at over the years, though, is pretty insane. Being a drug dealer isn't just something Jay-Z discussed in interviews, it's a central part of his music. To the very first singles to his very first album, his music was always built on gritty, dark stories about him trafficking drugs up and down the East Coast and making huge piles of money while doing it. Being a drug-dealing gangster turned rapper is literally what his career was founded on. But a lot of people have accused Jay-Z of lying about his business over the years. Comedian Faison Love is only one person who went on record and said there's absolutely no way Jay-Z was dealing drugs at the scale he claims.
When Jay-Z creates this whole drug dealer, drug lord, I'm a drug dealer, I'm a drug lord, these kids, and then we gotta do it too, to be like Jay-Z. Not knowing that this is all made up shit.
Jay was involved in. Hold on.
No.
Not only that, but Faison Love also had strong feelings about the effect Jay-Z's glorifying his past had on people as a result. Of course, that would only be even more sinister if a lot of the stories he tells aren't true at all. Glorifying a life of crime and danger, encouraging people to do the same to make it out of their own situations, only for your story to be untrue, that's dark. The thing is, though, the people who knew Jay-Z before the fame, before he dropped Reasonable Doubt, a lot of them tell a much different story than Faison Love. Memphis Bleek is another Brooklyn rapper who also grew up in the Marcy houses, and he knew Jay-Z from a young age, later telling this story from the mid-90s when Jay-Z was not yet famous.
So listen, right, I'm telling Hov I'm fucked up. I need $100. Nigga like, listen. Go in my room, in my nightstand. In my top drawer is the 100. Yo, Bleak, I know how much money I got, so take 100. That's it. So I'm like, all right, cool, no fucking problem. Let me go upstairs to the room, go to the nightstand, take 100. I open the drawer.
She got $1 million.
A whole stack of hundreds, just the whole drawer full of hundreds. So I'm like, damn, Bleak, why the fuck you ask for 100? Like, what's wrong with you, my nigga? Like, so I'm like, all right, let me take $100 bill. So I'm gonna take 100. But then now, I'm downstairs chilling with the shorty, son in my mind, like, check the other drawers. So I go up there, check hundreds, 50s, every drawer stacked to the top, hundreds and 50s. Then you get to the drawer that just had 20s. And it was like, Bleak again, why you ask for 100?
DeHaven is another person who's gone on record many times over the years to talk about Jay-Z's life in the streets, having first met Jay-Z when they were kids in Brooklyn, and later living together in Trenton, New Jersey when they were young adults.
Monique?
Okay. So was he actually on the corner selling?
Yeah, he get busy. Yeah, he got busy. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I'm in New York, he gonna get busy. Nah, you know what I mean? And, you know, and they took into him. He had a nice squad. He had his own little squad that got busy for him. So, yeah, he knew how to be a boss.
Well, you and Jay have not spoken in over 20 years.
Right.
Jay walks in the room right now, sits down next to you. What would you tell him?
What would I tell him?
Yeah.
What took so long?
Whether or not Jay-Z being a fake or real drug dealer and glamorizing his fake or real crimes and the harm he did to other people, hurting his community, is up to interpretation. But in the end, the truth of his stories told by his former friends paints an even darker picture than the story otherwise would have if he had been a liar all along. Basically, he really did that shit. The only reason why this matters at all, though, is because Jay-Z didn't become a statistic. Eventually, he did make it out of the streets and become a best-selling rapper, a record executive, and so on. But that part of his life didn't begin until he was 26 years old. If you're interested in more of my creations, you need to check out Spirit World, my independently owned line of solid silver, hand-painted jewelry. Each piece tells a story and is designed to not just be fashionable and well-made, but most importantly, it carries a reminder of the journey of life and the importance of continuing on no matter what. It really does stand for something. I started this brand completely independent.
Man, hit the like button. Make sure y'all subscribe to the page.
Goes into being able to make more videos like this. These videos are often
Subscribe.
a lot of what I make gets demonetized.
Subscribe to the page. Like the video. Share the video.
So Spirit World is a huge deal.
Like the video. Share the video. Subscribe to the page, man.
Never take off is the darkest night and the brightest day. A silver piece.
God damn, nigga, how much shit you trying to sell, nigga? You going crazy.
Grab some really beautiful silver jewelry that's actually really well made and will last for as long as you do. You can go to spiritworld.store and grab a pendant and chain right now. Shipping is always free in the US, and you can use the code VOLKSGANG for a special discount just for watching Volksgeist. And once again, thank you very much for supporting what I do on this channel and helping make sure
appreciate
videos keep coming. Years after Jay-Z got famous, his cousin later said every morning he would wake up and be in the mirror rhyming to himself to hear himself and check his flow. You know how some people get up and do calisthenics every morning?
Can't see.
It was like that. But Jay-Z didn't get in front of a mic and put out a song till he was 26 years old. Pretty old.
You should be able to see it now.
One of the biggest rappers alive. Mainly because, again, he was dealing drugs for 10 years before that. The story goes, though, that entire time he spent practicing, preparing, writing, and getting ready to be a rapper. Sitting on the train, driving from state to state, practicing. It was all he did.
So I started memorizing these things to take them home. You know, and it became
sure.
an exercise for me. And every day I'm trying to memorize 8 bars, then 16 bars, then I'm memorizing the whole song. Then I start getting away from the house further and further. So I start memorizing longer and longer. You know? My journey back home is getting further and further. It took me from New York to Trenton to Maryland to Virginia, DC, you know, it was getting further and further away from me.
Despite him getting pulled into the world of drug trafficking, music was always his true passion from the very beginning. Even as far back as the late 80s, when he was barely past his teenage years, he can be briefly heard on some recordings from Jazz O, an older rapper from Marcy Projects who got a record deal with EMI in the mid-80s and was also the same person who provided the gun that Jay shot his brother with at the age of 12. But his experiences weren't just limited to people he knew in the Marcy Project. He also made a name for himself in New York when he ended up in a few rap battles with LL Cool J in 1992, years before he released any of his own music. But like he said later, being a professional rapper wasn't really a viable life option. It wasn't at all like today when any young kid can find a gimmick, put themselves all over social media, and end up with a small fortune and 1 million followers within a year or two. It wasn't even an issue of gatekeepers controlling who succeeded and who didn't. When Jay-Z was in his early to mid-20s, hip-hop as a business wasn't yet big enough for him to count on it as a viable life option, with a lack of simple ways to distribute your work and get it heard by people, at least not compared to the type of money he was making already. He later said this: "I remember the first time I saw Sugar Hill Gang on TV. I was like, what's going on? How did these guys get on TV? Still, though, he would later say that music was calling his name, and he knew at the time that he couldn't be in the streets forever and get out with his life, and that trying to make it in music was a better chance than to keep playing with his life in a way that ends well for almost nobody. And so the story goes that eventually Jay-Z found himself in a position where he had to walk away from his lifestyle and start from the very bottom to even have a shot at being able to do what he loved. He's always said that he took the chance to turn his life around, to grow as a person, and to achieve something real. But it was a slow start. After his first single, In My Lifetime, was passed on by a number of radio stations who didn't like his style, and a variety of major labels had no particular interest in what he was making, by 1994, Jay-Z took matters into his own hands and started selling records out of the trunk of his car around Brooklyn. He did sign with an indie label, Payday Records, who saw potential in the song In My Lifetime, but they ended up being a bad fit and weren't able to help push his career forward. In the end, they let him go with a small lump sum payment as a contract payout. That moment was huge for Jay-Z, and in a way, it made the rest of his career possible. Teaming up with two close friends, Biggs Burke and Dame Dash, they took the money from the Payday Records contract and founded an independent record label with a tiny office in one of the rougher parts of Manhattan at the time. Within a few years, Jay-Z's independent record label, Roc-A-Fella, that he founded with two friends just so they could get his debut album out, massively skyrocketed in size and scope. It only took 3 years before Roc-A-Fella entered into a 50-50 partnership with Def Jam, and Jay-Z's career got huge. But once he was really in the music industry and started pursuing bigger and bigger goals, it seems like the integrity and the morals he claimed to have gotten from slinging crack went away, and a greed for money, power, and influence took its place. Jay-Z's debut album, Reasonable Doubt, was moderately successful, peaking at 23 on the Billboard 200. It wasn't a huge hit right out of the gate, but reviews were great, and people who were in the know knew it could be an instant classic. An East Coast hip-hop record, Reasonable Doubt was noted for having mafioso rap themes with lyrics characterized by Stylist magazine as gritty realism. Writer Dream Hampton believed that although rappers had alluded to hustling before, Jay-Z talks about what it can do to a person's inner peace and what it can do to their mind. Jay-Z later said, "The studio was like a psychiatrist's couch for me while recording Reasonable Doubt." Steve Huey described him as a street hustler from the projects who rapped about what he knew, detailing his experiences with disarming honesty. And as time went on, Reasonable Doubt started to be recognized as one of the greatest rap albums ever made, with quotes like this describing its massive influence. Since its initial reception, Reasonable Doubt has received further acclaim from music critics and writers. According to Pitchfork's Ryan Schreiber, it has often been considered one of hip-hop's best albums, while Birchmeier said it was viewed like Nas's Illmatic as a classic hip-hop album by a younger rapper about their street and criminal experiences. Reasonable Doubt transfigured gangster rap into mafioso rap, popularizing the subgenre and the imagery of high-class, expensive lifestyles and tastes in hip-hop, drinking Cristal, driving Lexus automobiles, and living out the
Tony
plots of
Vans,
films
what's the
like
word?
Scarface
What's the
or
word?
Carlito's Way. In the opinion of Miles Marshall Lewis, Reasonable Doubt was a work that shocked the world. Basically, Jay-Z's early work was really, really good. From the writing to the production to the themes of his stories, he was able to tell tales that appealed to a massive audience and displayed a crazy talent for lyricism at the same time. People really liked Jay-Z. Even in the earliest days of his career, he was seen as a top talent who made great music.
Bone crushers, I keep it close, I got the skill for this. On my back, the flyers closed, looking ill as shit. Transactions illegitimate, cause life is still a bitch. And then you die, but for now, life, close your eyes and feel his dick.
Understandably, Jay-Z's rise to fame after he finally got launched after years of struggle was pretty quick. After Reasonable Doubt, which peaked at number 23 on the Billboard 200, he followed up with In My Lifetime, which peaked at number 3. After that, Hard Knock Life peaked at number 1, and his records never fell again, following that up with 15 number 1 albums in a row. With over a dozen albums, Jay-Z ran the game for years. Multiple retirements, hiatuses, and comebacks, he stayed on top for a long time, releasing arguably 5 classic albums, selling over 140 million records, winning 24 Grammy Awards, the most of any rapper ever, and being the first hip-hop artist to be inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. He did a massive amount of work to bring hip-hop to even bigger audiences than ever before, and he received some great recognition for doing so. He wasn't an R. Kelly or a P. Diddy. People legitimately love Jay-Z's music. Plus, his ability to cross hip-hop with pop earned him some pretty huge chart positions as well. Umbrella with Rihanna, Empire State of Mind, Numb with Love, Neighbors in Paris. Jay-Z wasn't just making classic albums, he dominated the radio for over a decade, having the song of the summer almost every summer for almost 10 years.
Oh, my
From
mama.
Reasonable Doubt in 1996 to 444,
Until Cash Money
a
came.
lot of people consider Jay-Z one of the greatest active rappers. For a lot of people, he still is one of the best. Jay-Z's majesty derives not from what he has made for himself, famous hip-hop artist Jay-Z, but from what he has provided for others as his lesser-known self, Sean Carter. Throughout his career, he's defined and redefined what it means to hustle. From selling Class A drugs on the streets of Brooklyn, to musical albums via his independently founded record label, to staples of rap culture like champagne and streetwear, Jay-Z has harnessed his influence and extends it back to the locals of his own stomping grounds, the Marcy Housing Projects, as well as to Black America and the wider world. Reaching an unmatched balance between quality and popularity, He made a discography that was ridiculously popular and lyrically good, something that only a few rappers were ever able to do at the level he did. And he was so loved for it that he has a permanent spot in people's minds as one of the best hip-hop artists ever. This is a quote from an article where Billboard named him the greatest rapper of all time. Billboard's reason for placing Jay-Z at the top came down to his overall career success. Maybe there are other rappers who could claim to match Jay-Z, but there are simply none who can match his entire career. His longevity, the breadth of his accomplishments, and what he means for hip-hop from a musical, cultural, financial standpoint for the last 3 decades. That's what makes it so much stranger that the real Jay-Z is someone with so many skeletons in his closet, so many lies and strange actions that make him look more like a corrupt, dark character than someone who can motivate millions to do better. There are a lot of people in the entertainment industry who have secrets come out about them, but it turns out that their true character was already in plain view for a long time. P. Diddy and R. Kelly are 2 amazing examples of musicians who turned out were not good people at all. In fact, they were flat out evil. But a lot of people knew that already for years. Jay-Z, though, might be the only artist who was most idolized and loved for years, only for his actions to tell a much different story than the PR machine around him. Still, though, a lot of what he did couldn't be hidden forever, and as it came out, it started to cloud people's ideas of him beyond repair. In 2017, when he dropped 444 at the age of 50, it was instantly recognized as one of his best albums, one of the best albums of that year overall. Full of heavy, hard-hitting reflections on his flaws, his family, and his mistakes, it went deeper than anyone thought he would after 21 years of rapping. It had some of his best rhymes, some of his best wordplay, and his greatest storytelling, solidifying him as one of the greatest to ever do it. But still, it revealed and brought to light a lot of things that make people see him differently to this day. One of the standout tracks from 444 was the title track, a 4-minute, 44-second song full of introspection and reflections that immediately became one of the most highly regarded songs Jay-Z had made. The big story around this project had to do with Beyonce, because not only did Jay-Z become one of the biggest rappers in the game, but he also married the world's biggest pop star in 2008 after dating for more than 7 years. Their collaborations, brands, appearances, and their cult fan base over the years had made them one of the biggest celebrity couples of all time. But in this context, 444 is an apology letter to his wife of 16 years, focusing on the consequences and the guilt of the immaturity and the infidelity he carried out in their relationship over the years, and the different ways that it hurt his wife. It was widely considered one of the highest moments of his career, with the lyrics and storytelling being poignant and hard-hitting. Beyonce also made her own album about this time in her life. Lemonade dived deep into the stress and trauma from her husband's infidelity, with large parts of the record being centered around her struggles with feeling inadequate, insecure, and mistreated in her marriage. Beyonce didn't divorce. Instead, they made a joint album and did a world tour right after all of this news came out, going to show just how linked and mutually beneficial their careers had become. At the same time, though, the allegedly suspicious origins of their relationship have been a subject of interest for a long time. Many people have observed strange inconsistencies in their stories and an odd relationship dynamic that points to a darker reality than meets the eye on red carpets and in music videos. The story has always been that they met when she was 18 and he was 30. And that they then spent a few years as friends before officially dating when she was 20 and he was 32. Or at least that was the narrative. Instead, though, it looks a lot more like Jay-Z actually met Beyonce for the first time when she was 16 and he was 28, with photos of them together when Beyonce was a minor resurfacing over the years. Still, though, there are countless more questions around Jay-Z's motivations and his influence on Beyonce's early life. A 30-year-old man dating an 18-year-old girl is never ever normal, especially if they met when the girl was underage. It doesn't matter if they're both famous, it doesn't matter if he waited until she was 20. Grooming is bad. A 30-year-old man can exert vastly more influence over a teenager than the teenager even understands. With different levels of emotional development and life experience, that's not good for a kid. If you don't understand what I'm saying, ask yourself, would I catch feelings for a 16-year-old? If the answer isn't clear to you immediately, just click off the video. The fact that Jay-Z met a 16-year-old Beyonce, decided he wanted to go after her, waited a couple of years, and then felt it was totally normal to be dating her, it betrays something really strange about who he is on the inside. A lot of the time when you think about a 30-year-old guy dating an 18-year-old, the thought that comes to mind is something trashy or someone low class or creepy. But ultimately, it's not about the person that's doing it. Jay-Z was rich and famous, and it's still wrong. 30-year-old man has no real reason to date a teenager. When you have that much more knowledge and experience about adulthood,
Damn, he just
life,
flipped up.
it's manipulative and inappropriate to go after someone who...
That nigga, first he was just acknowledging Jay-Z and Jay-Z this, Jay-Z that. He was giving them all praises, then turned right around and started shitting on them. He's shitting on them.
doesn't have that. I'm 25 years old. The last time I would have looked at a 16-year-old in a romantic context was when I was 17. The last time I would have dated an 18-year-old was when I was 20 at the most. What kind of person is 30 years old and says, yeah, I want that 18-year-old? Are you serious? And Jay-Z has even rapped about this proudly on songs over the longtime friends also later said that Jay-Z moved in on her specifically after she broke up with her teenage boyfriend when she was done with high school.
This is how Jay-Z was able to move in, because she was heartbroken. And Jay came in like the snake. Y'all done seen all the activities of this dude being a snake, and then still don't want to believe he's a snake.
Even beyond conspiracies or gossip posts, though, Jay-Z and Beyonce's relationship has drawn intense scrutiny over the years, revealing troubling patterns in his character and behavior. Between his admitted infidelity, the known multiple stress-induced miscarriages that Beyonce suffered early in their marriage, the significant age gap when they met, public incidents like the elevator altercation with Beyonce's sister, many view Jay-Z not as a loving husband, but as someone who pursued a very young, impressionable singer and established a controlling, potentially abusive dynamic that persists to this day. There are countless stories that support that claim. In 2005, when Beyonce featured Bun B in her song Check On It, Jay-Z, having no involvement with the production, stepped in and forbid any men from being on the set while Beyonce was shooting the music video, including Bun B himself, even though he was married at the time. Later on, he also stopped Jamaican rapper Sean Paul from performing his song with Beyonce, even going backstage to cut his mic during a performance at an award show. The entire history and dynamics of Jay-Z and Beyonce's marriage could be a 2-hour documentary on its own, but all in all, it's yet another thing in his career that points to being a strange, predatory person instead of an inspiring figure. Ultimately, it's pretty clear that Jay-Z took advantage by going after a 16-year-old when he was 28 and has had a ton of control over her throughout most of her career, and that should be critiqued in a societal context, even though it's far too late to do anything about it on a personal level. Still, though, it's far from the only example of what I'm talking about.
If it ain't a teen, then you don't get his attention. Rihanna was a teen. Rosario Dawson, teen. Aaliyah, teen. For a man who was 30, bunch of teens in there. I'm just saying, Foxy Brown, super teen. I can't name you an adult relationship Jay was in.
It also points to a broader pattern in the type of woman Jay-Z was going after back in his early 30s, because Beyonce isn't the only woman around the age of 18 that Jay-Z was linked to in those days. He was first seen with actress Rosario Dawson in 1997 when she was 18 and he was 28, and they dated for about a year. Around this time, Jay-Z was at least 27 or 28 years old, but he was doing duets with her where they were talking about having sex, dating, being in a relationship in very explicit terms.
Damn, Jay.
Foxy Brown all over his early albums, from Reasonable Doubt to In My Lifetime and more. That isn't all, though. Over the years, various people have commented on the idea that there was something personal going on between Jay-Z and Foxy Brown while she was still underage. But even if Jay-Z's relationship with Foxy Brown was strictly business, that on its own is creepy enough. Jay-Z being close to 30 years old and doing songs with a 16 or 17-year-old girl saying the things that they were saying, it takes a whole other level of personal and moral corruption and greed to go through with that as if it's completely normal just to make a hit song. Why would you ever want to do that?
I was like, my understanding, Foxy got signed at like 15, 16 years old. The first time I had heard of her was on the Ain't No Nigga record, and outside looking in, and that's why I had Dave in front of me. I was like, how old was she when y'all was in the studio? Like, was anything going on? And if he would have just said no, I think he was like, oh, I see what you doing. Oh, you funny. Like he was playing it up. But I'm just like, the reason why ain't nobody speaking up, because everybody been condoning this bullshit in hip-hop and film and television and sports. There's young teenage girls around grown-ass fucking men all the time.
Ultimately, though, Foxy Brown's story in the industry had a pretty tragic end. Even if it's not officially confirmed that she had anything to do with Jay-Z on an inappropriate level, the industry clearly took a toll on her life. As she got older, she began to struggle with mental health and legal issues, with her career eventually hitting a wall after her third album in 2001. Her fourth album was canceled when its executive producer, P. Diddy, wouldn't agree on what to do with promotion and production for the project. A few years later, she was sentenced to a year in prison, some of which was spent in solitary confinement, among other legal issues that followed her for a long time. In the mid-2000s, she also went deaf, leaving her unable to record or perform, and after that, her career was never the same again.
Damn, she
Very few
deaf?
public appearances in the last 20 years. Whether or not her disappearance from the public eye or legal issues were triggered or made worse by stress and trauma from what she experienced as a kid in entertainment, that's uncertain. But it would certainly make sense as a reflection of just how destabilizing the entertainment industry can be for teenagers who get thrown into the limelight at a young age and influenced by older people around them. And for Foxy Brown, Jay-Z was at the center of that. She has claimed at various times over the years that she either did or didn't have sexual contact with Jay-Z, never saying for sure one way or the other, but in the end, her tragic story is another reminder of the way that the music industry and the people in it exploit young stars. But somehow, this still isn't the only story like that from Jay-Z's past. Aaliyah was a singer from Detroit, often credited as helping redefine contemporary R&B in the 90s, despite only releasing 3 albums before her tragic and untimely death in a plane crash in 2001. After being signed to a major label in 1992, her debut record would later go on to be certified 3 times platinum.
She deaf in one ear, gang. Oh.
And a revolutionary artist. She first got connected to the music industry.
I just heard her say deaf.
Who was an entertainment lawyer and immediately recognized her talent, introducing her to the person who would be the lead songwriter and executive producer of her debut album, R. Kelly, who at the time was becoming one of the most popular R&B singers in the US. The story goes that it took 8 or 9 months of constant work to make Aaliyah's debut, and during that time they got closer and closer, taking breaks from recording to watch movies and get dinner, and there were even rumors that they were falling in love, with Aaliyah being spotted staying at R. Kelly's house at various times. And then on August 31st, 1994, just a few months after her debut was released, Aaliyah and R. Kelly were secretly married at a hotel in Chicago. But on the day of their wedding, Aaliyah was 15 years old and R. Kelly was 27. Years later, Aaliyah's tour manager revealed that he helped forge documents to make it seem like she was 18, so she could get married. Being highly illegal, the marriage was quickly annulled after Aaliyah's family found out, although many people close to her later said that she was never quite the same after her relationship with R. Kelly. Her boyfriend at the time of her death often said that she refused to discuss her relationship with Kelly and will only say that he was a bad man, explaining that he found it emotionally impossible to watch any interviews with R. Kelly's other victims because of how much it reminded him of Aaliyah's own behaviors. In the years after her brief marriage, she was often villainized in the music industry and even found it difficult to find producers to work with for her later projects. Her manager said later that P. Diddy was the only producer who would work with her after the news about her underage marriage came out. And although they were never officially in a relationship in the public eye, she went on to be seen with Jay-Z in various public settings years later. At the same time, though, she was in an official relationship with David Dash, Jay-Z's longtime manager and co-founder of Roc-A-Fella Records. She was still with Dash when she passed away, and the story goes that they were planning to get married at the time. Dash later said, 20 years after her death, "There hasn't been one day since she's passed that I haven't either heard her name, heard her music, or seen a picture of her. Every single day she's present in my life." The strange thing was, though, not long after she passed in 2001, Jay-Z embarked on a world tour and released 2 albums with R. Kelly, and according to Dame Dash, that was the beginning of the end for Roc-A-Fella Records as a whole. This is a quote from an article of an interview with Dame Dash. Dash and Aaliyah met in 2000 and continued to date until the singer's tragic death in 2001. But just a few months after Aaliyah died, R. Kelly and Jay-Z released The Best of Both Worlds, a collaborative album that Dame Dash strongly opposed. If you remember The Best of Both Worlds, you don't see my name on that. I never wanted any part of that, the music mogul explained. Dame Dash said Jay-Z knew about R. Kelly's alleged sexual abuse of young girls, including Aaliyah, but that didn't stop his Roc-A-Fella co-founder from teaming up with a singer. Dash claims he refused to be credited on the album and that he donated his profits to a charity that Aaliyah supported. He said, "I know morally we weren't the same," referring to Jay-Z. So to me, Roc-A-Fella was over. I couldn't fuck with it. It was something to me that I don't want to say was unforgivable, but I couldn't understand it. Whether or not Jay-Z went out and worked with R. Kelly out of bitterness that Aaliyah chose someone else over him, or if he just didn't care at all, is a question that might never get answered. In the end, though, knowing that he knew what R. Kelly did,
Best of Both Worlds was fire, I ain't gonna lie.
Even sociopathic person who had no problem choosing profit over doing the right thing. And not long after the release of Jay-Z's 2 joint albums with R. Kelly, Roc-A-Fella essentially split. There were a variety of factors at play, from strained relationships with clients to disagreements between executives, but Dame Dash still maintains to this day that Jay-Z's decision to collaborate with R. Kelly shattered any trust he had in him as a friend or a colleague. From RollingOut.com, Dash recalls the moment that he confronted Jay-Z about working with R. Kelly, describing a heated exchange that ultimately spelled the end of their empire. "I was like, yo, how are you going to do a project with a guy that raped my girl?" This raw conversation marked what he calls the nail in the coffin for their partnership. Not long after that incident, all shares of Roc-A-Fella were sold to Def Jam in 2004 for $10 million. At that point, Jay-Z was named the president of Def Jam, and that would somehow turn out to be even more controversial and questionable than what he had done already. Jay-Z spent 3 years as the president of Def Jam, not in an honorary or symbolic position, but actually working in the company. He even announced that he was retiring from music completely to focus on his new role, releasing the Black Album, which many people called one of his best records, as his final project. And Def Jam was doing well when Jay-Z got there. They had artists like Kanye West, DMX, Jeezy, Joe Budden, Ghostface Killah, and more on their roster already. And Jay-Z made a number of ambitious moves while he was with the company, one of the most notable being signing Rihanna in 2005. Rihanna had originally been scouted by a producer visiting her hometown in Barbados and even left her home country to stay with the family of the person who noticed her talent so she could get developed, all at the age of just 16 years old. Within a year, she ended up in front of Jay-Z, and the story goes that he believed in her talent so much that he kept her in his office until 3 a.m., telling her that she could either sign a deal with Def Jam or leave his office through the window. And at the time, the label's office was on the 28th floor. And threatening to throw a 16-year-old girl out of a window if she didn't sign a contract with him was only one example of Jay-Z wielding his record exec power in a way that many people found questionable. Even back when he first took the job, people were writing posts about how Jay-Z's position was nothing but bad news for the company. How does being a rapper qualify someone to run a rap label? It doesn't, and the Jay-Z situation at Def Jam illustrates exactly why rappers should rap and people who know how to run labels should run labels. Let's take a look at a few situations that Jay has messed up horribly as a businessman in just the past 6 months. Basically, people's issues with Jay-Z running a big label came down to him being biased, having his own career and reputation that he was always going to prioritize no matter what, while also having a ton of control over other people's careers. And he stepped on more than a few toes while he was president of the label. Rappers, especially Jay-Z, are fantastic at self-promotion. He didn't get put on by being humble and staying out of the limelight. But as the president of a label, one has to know how to get others into the limelight. And it seems that Jay-Z is completely unwilling to let anyone shine except for himself. Let's go back to this past summer. Jay-Z beef with Crystal, something I chastised him for on this site, but little did I know there was another reason to get on Jay for this. 2 months later, Def Jam released Method Man's album. What on earth was Jay-Z doing, putting himself in the spotlight at a time when he should have been pushing a lead single for Method Man and giving him a budget for a video? Method Man is a legend in the game. As a part of Wu-Tang Clan, he helped bring New York hip-hop back, and he was instrumental in changing the sound of the scene at a time when the airwaves were ruled by West Coast funk. Instead of big-upping the legend and putting him on the pedestal he belongs on, Jay-Z essentially ignored the release of his album. Bad business move. The label has to sell albums for all of their artists, not just one. And there were even more examples of artists disagreeing with Jay-Z's leadership at the label. LL Cool J and Cameron both vocalized issues with a peer like Jay-Z being put in a position of power above them. But DMX's reaction was probably the strongest. X was one of the biggest rappers in the game at the time, but he ended up leaving Def Jam in 2006 after expressing many times that he didn't trust Jay-Z to have so much power over his career when he himself had his own brand to look after. DMX spoke many times in later years about how he felt Jay-Z tried to eliminate him as competition or blackball him by refusing to release his 6th album, forcing him to leave the label if he wanted his music to see the light of day again. And Joe Budden was another artist that wasn't a fan at all, later saying, "This was the first time that a rapper, our peer, was calling the shots, in charge of DMX's release date and LL Cool J's release date, and none of us took that well." Of course, that's only one of Jay-Z's moves in his music career that people consider a dark mark. There's another incident in 1999 where he was sentenced to 3 years probation for stabbing a record executive who he thought was bootlegging his music. Also around the end of Roc-A-Fella, just before his time at Def Jam, many people felt he had done dirty business against his 2 co-founders when he didn't involve them in negotiations to sell their label to Def Jam. Jay-Z undeniably did make a huge impact in the industry throughout his career, helping launch influential stars like Kanye, Rihanna, J. Cole, and more. But in a lot of ways, he left a trail of disappointment and bad business behind him. Artists like Tierra Marie, Cameron, Emil, Beanie Siegel, and many others have all talked about how Jay-Z failed to support them when it was his job to do so, showing favoritism or just ghosting their careers while they were signed to him. While Jay-Z's career as a record executive comes with a long list of achievements, at the same time, he also showed many times that he was willing to do whatever it took to push himself forward, even if that meant ruining relationships with people he was responsible for, cutting his longtime partners out of deals, or even worse. But Jay-Z's influence still stretched even beyond the music industry. He also emerged as a powerful voice for social justice, having a big impact on politics at the height of his career. Especially during the tense social climate of the mid and late 2010s, Jay-Z was known for helping pay legal fees and provide support for a number of people who were widely recognized as not being treated fairly by the American justice system. He was a huge supporter of Colin Kaepernick and even turned out a Super Bowl halftime show performance to show support for him. And he also helped 21 Savage avoid deportation from the US. He even reportedly spent millions of dollars helping Meek Mill stay out of prison after an incident where he popped a wheelie on a dirt bike, ended up being a probation violation, and put him behind bars for 6 months. Even more so, though, Jay-Z was known for providing representation for people people who really needed it. Not just rappers and athletes, but people like Jaguar, an 11-year-old kid who was arrested in Florida for not standing for the Pledge of Allegiance in his 6th grade classroom. And that's just one of many examples where Jay-Z used his own money to provide legal support for people facing injustice, even meeting with the governor of Minnesota after George Floyd was killed in 2020. When Barack Obama took office as America's first black president, Jay-Z became a frequent visitor to the White House and a vocal supporter of progressive policies. On October 31st, 2021, Barack Obama himself said this about Jay-Z. I've turned to Jay-Z's words at different points in my life, whether I was brushing dirt off my shoulder on the campaign trail or sampling his lyrics on the Edmund Pettus Bridge on the 50th anniversary of the Selma March to Montgomery. Today, Jay-Z is one of the most renowned artists in history and an embodiment of the American dream, a dream he has helped make real for other young people like him. When a former president of the US calls you the embodiment of the American dream, that's a whole other level of success, and it shows just how influential Jay-Z became over the years. And realistically, it did a lot for his PR too. By getting involved in giving and helping for people who needed it, he only added to the reputation he had as an artist who represented something real, powerful, and profound. Being someone who started from zero, selling crack in the streets of New York, started rapping, and within a few years was a record executive, and then turning around and spending his own money to help people who need representation, speaking for actual causes, he was an icon of black excellence, someone who could actually make a change in the world and was willing to stand up and do it. With articles like How Jay-Z Became a Civil Rights Champion getting published on major news sites all throughout the 2010s, he became somewhat of a political icon. Or at least that's what the official narrative was. Throughout his career, though, if you look a little bit closer, a different story also sits in plain view. Despite his work in activism, the charitable giving, the record-breaking discography, the icon status as a living embodiment of the American dream, over time, a darker side of Jay-Z as a person and a businessman became clear, and a lot of people's perception of him has changed. And that side has a greed for money and a lust for power by any means necessary. And the closer you look, it seems to go against a lot of the values people thought he embodied. Even with his career in activism, a loyalty to money and success over values and principles started to show. Having once supported NFL player Colin Kaepernick and his political protest on the field, Jay-Z even criticized the NFL for the way they treated him publicly. But he then went on to sign a deal to help organize Super Bowl halftime shows, which many people felt was hypocritical and self-serving. And that's not even getting into how many people felt like Jay-Z completely betrayed them after he started advocating for black people to gentrify their own hoods. For many people, that feels like the voice of elitism, greed, and inequality. Getting rich and gentrifying your old neighborhood doesn't save it. That's just the same definition of gentrification as it always was, meaning that residents would get displaced as the area gets more attractive for wealthier people who are from out of town to move in. And the issue was, Jay-Z did do that in real life. He owned a small portion of the Brooklyn Nets NBA team for a number of years, and as part of that, he also invested in the construction of a new arena for the team. Attached to that arena development was a plan for 17 new high-rise buildings, some of which are still under construction today. However, it quickly became one of the most controversial building projects in American history, because in order to start building, they didn't build it on top of abandoned lots or vacant buildings, but instead used eminent domain to find space. That's the process of the government taking people's houses and demolishing them to build new stuff on top. In the process of setting up the new arena and the surrounding buildings, hundreds of people from Brooklyn were forced to move from their homes so expensive apartments could be put there instead. Jay-Z, not long after, sold his share of the arena for a $500,000 profit. In the years since, this project has been called a disaster that raised the cost of living in Brooklyn for hundreds of thousands of people without providing any benefits to locals. It's not hard to see that as Jay-Z selling out his own neighborhood for a quick buck, giving into the corporate machine for his own benefit. But even then, that's not the only time Jay-Z has faced controversy for his investments and business interests. Jay-Z was never just a rapper. He might have been one of the greatest rappers around for a long time, with a long list of awards, classic albums, and so on, but even in the early days of his career, he was recognized also as an entrepreneur. I mean, he literally founded his own label that went on to be its own successful company just so he could drop a project. And across his career, he would go on to push the boundaries of what entertainers can do to leverage their fame. Just a few years into his rap career, around the time of his third or fourth album, he and Roc-A-Fella co-founder Dame Dash founded Roc-A-Wear, a clothing brand that within 10 years would be sold for more than $200 million. An insane sum for someone who was just 10 years ago selling CDs out of his car. Various sources report an annual revenue for Roc-A-Wear of anywhere from $50 million to $600 million when the brand was at its peak. Basically, Roc-A-Wear was a pretty iconic brand. In 2011, he also invested a few $1 million into Uber, which over time increased to the point where it made him over $100 million. In 2015, he bought and became the face of Tidal, a music streaming service with a focus on hi-fi sound quality and better paid artists. Depending on who you ask, Tidal was either a huge success or overall kind of a failure. Even though Jay-Z, Beyonce, and others made their music available exclusively on Tidal for a couple of years, it never really took off with the general public, and they later even got caught faking streams on Beyonce and Kanye albums to make their stats look better. Jay-Z eventually sold Tidal to Twitter founder Jack Dorsey for $300 million, making Jay-Z a ton of money, but not becoming the game-changing company he had promised. In fact, many of the artists who stood with him at the start to endorse it, like Nicki Minaj, later talked about how they never got paid in any way for promoting the app. Still though, in 2019, he became the first hip-hop artist to ever reach billionaire status, with Forbes describing his wealth as a sprawling, diversified financial empire. For a lot of people, this added to Jay-Z's aura. Not only was he someone who could make generation-defining music coming from a background of selling crack, but he also became a billionaire. It was simply unprecedented. The promises of his music being a mouthpiece for hustlers, it had come true in the biggest way possible. Even Warren Buffett, the legendary investor worth $100 billion, once said, "For a young person growing up, Jay-Z is the guy to learn from." For a lot of people, it represented the power of hard work, the importance of believing in yourself. I remember in 2013, I wanted to be an entrepreneur after listening to Magna Carta Holy Grail and learning more about Jay-Z. For millions of people, he embodied the dream of being self-made. But in the end, for many others, Jay-Z no longer represents the same message he did in the past. For a lot of people, his story now is more about corruption, abuse, greed, and the dark, exploitative reality of the entertainment industry. The stories of how he treated people, the sort of business he did, and what he was willing to do to find success and protect his investments, it paints a different picture than his PR machine has pushed for the last 25 years. And ultimately, in 2024, Jay-Z isn't really seen the same as he used to be. He still does have 30 million monthly listeners on Spotify. People still love his music, and he was just named the greatest rapper ever by multiple outlets last year. But there are a lot more people than ever starting to point out strange hypocrisies in his words and actions over the years. One of the worst ways that Jay-Z's greed has shown over the years is his friendships and networking with some of the most evil people the entertainment industry has ever seen. And that in itself has led to some really serious accusations against him in the past year. In late 2024, when Jay-Z was sued by controversial attorney Tony Busby for assaulting a minor with Diddy 25 years ago, his response was immediate and shockingly upfront for a person who has practically never responded to any other allegation that's been laid against him in the past, ever. He said this: "These allegations are so heinous in nature that I implore you to file a criminal complaint, not a civil one. Whoever would commit such a crime against a minor should be locked away. You have made a terrible error in judgment thinking that all celebrities are the same, but I'm not from your world. I'm a young man who made it out of the project of Brooklyn. We don't play these types of games. We have very strict codes and honor. We protect children. You seem to exploit people for personal gain." And Jay-Z's response may or may not turn out to be the truth. The lawsuit against him was immediately made cloudy and controversial when the anonymous accuser admitted her story was full of inconsistencies. But still, the case has not yet been dismissed. Not to say it is or isn't true, it definitely could be. But ultimately, you don't even need to prove that he did that particular terrible thing to show that he isn't above other terrible things. Because the key truth that came out of that accusation wasn't that he did or didn't assault a minor, but instead that he was close friends with P. Diddy, one of the biggest monsters to ever work in the entertainment world. But you don't need a lawsuit to reveal that, because it was never a secret to begin with. And not long after the lawsuit came out, Jay-Z's legal team said this: "Mr. Carter has nothing to do with Mr. Combs. They knew each other professionally for some years, just like in all professions people know each other. At the music awards, they support each other. If you go to the NBA All-Star game, they support each other. That's just how professions work. There is no closer association between any of them." But that part is just a lie. Diddy and Jay-Z had been friends for a very long time. Both coming up as big industry figures in the 90s and reaching similar levels of success, they've collaborated on music, charity events, concerts, and they've even called each other brothers in the past. A few years ago, they were seen together at a black billionaire brunch where Diddy made an infamous toast as Jay-Z stood next to him. It's hard to imagine that Jay-Z never knew at any point in all of his interactions with Diddy across those decades that something was wrong, especially while literally the entire general public knew about his monstrous behavior when it was still just rumors. And that's why it ultimately doesn't really matter if Jay-Z was part of Diddy's crimes or not. The idea alone that he might know who Diddy really was and was still happy to stand by Diddy for photos and events and have brunches and call him a brother, that in itself is bad enough. With R. Kelly knowing he abused his ex-girlfriend, selling out his own hometown to property developers for a quick buck, leaving his co-founders out to dry when he sold his record label, you don't have to look at theories about him being involved with Diddy to see that he's already guilty of that same sin anyway. And that sin is ultimately greed. Getting to the level that Jay-Z reached requires you to be willing to do anything, whether it's screwing over other artists, threatening kids, stabbing another man in the stomach over a record, doing a world tour and collab album with his ex-girlfriend's abuser, not paying co-founders like Nicki Minaj for promotion on his app, writing the business partners who made his career out of the company. Jay-Z's path is one that he started on 40 years ago when he was dealing crack to his own neighbors so he could buy luxury cars and jewelry. But ultimately, pointing out that Jay-Z is a controversial person is a lot harder than it is for P. Diddy or R. Kelly or anyone else, because he has done a lot. For those guys, the evil was always obvious. They were bad at hiding it. Everyone could tell. Jay-Z gets a lot more credit for being vastly better at making music and creating narratives, but ultimately, he still has that greed in common with them. It's easy to look at Diddy and Jay-Z and all of their mutual friends like Oprah and everybody else and feel like there's a conspiracy around them being in cahoots with each other. And that might be true, but ultimately what brings them all together is the love of money. They're an example of what happens when you're willing to do literally anything to push yourself forward. And so in the end, he isn't that different from someone like Diddy, who even before being arrested had an insane reputation of hurting, exploiting, and using everyone he worked with. Jay-Z is just much better at making music and creating narratives. But again, the truth is, it's simply a fact that in order to get anywhere near the level of fame and money that these people have achieved, you have to be ready and willing to do what Jay-Z did, and what Diddy did, or anybody else like them. And what they did is simple. They betrayed any sense of moral responsibility to be good towards others so they could get ahead. Jay-Z is no different than anyone else. There is no billionaire worth praising. But again, it's hard to completely condemn Jay-Z. He helped many people get out of prison, he has the cosign from Obama, and most of all, he's made a ton of music that people actually love. Jay-Z's public profile doesn't have a completely black and white bad legacy. And that's what makes it more complicated than just seeing an out-and-out monster when you look at someone like Diddy. He knows how to do enough good to look good enough. Still though, in a world where people like Diddy and R. Kelly and Jeffrey Epstein and Harvey Weinstein and so many others are finally called out for being evil in private while they parade their success to the world, Jay-Z isn't far off from being right next to them. Unless, of course, he is literally right next to them. It's ultimately a classic example of separating art from the artist. You can listen to Jay-Z's music, a lot of the great music he made, and you can take away something from it for yourself. Because music can be a good source of motivation or a story, but you don't need to idolize the person behind it. Until the person he became didn't have much in common with who he used to be, or really anyone else, as he became more and more elite and attached himself more to the capitalist system. But ultimately, Jay-Z's story is a reminder of human nature itself, because greed is a corrupting force that can turn even the best intentioned people into monsters. Plus, the reality of Jay-Z's character and life is bad enough without adding theories about the Illuminati or secret sex trafficking into the mix. And look, that stuff might be true too, but in the end, everything he's done in public is pretty serious anyway. All we can do as normal people who will never be billionaires, will never be A-listers, we can remember that these celebrities and entertainers are not our leaders, they're not our gods. They're always imperfect, sometimes evil individuals acting in their own best interest the same way we do in our own lives. If you're interested in more of my creations, you need to check out Spirit World, my independently owned line of solid silver hand-painted jewelry. Each piece tells a story and is designed to not just be fashionable and well-made, but most importantly, it carries a reminder of the journey of life.
Now, if you're over here and you have not watched all the way through part 1, part 2, and part 3, hit that back button, get up out of here, because what we're doing here on this video is part 4, the finale.
Y'all make sure y'all go get up in tune with Loyalty and Betrayal.
First, before you can come over here.
That paperwork, she raw as hell with it, man. Y'all get over there and get in tune. Subscribe to her page.
Let's get these 75 pages wrapped on up.
For sure.
Finale in part 4. And we left off where they were trying to reschedule a date to finish this hearing because it had taken so long. And the defense attorney says, Your Honor, while you're waiting for the calendar to load, I was advised by my client that he spoke with Yesenia, who is his direct supervisor, and who advised that he's welcome to come back anytime. I have not spoken to her myself, but that is some more information.
This about Dirk, man. Murder for hire. Another one. This about Dirk.
Sorry, I just need to talk courtroom deputy. They talk off the record. She comes back. She says, "Will 1 o'clock work for the government?" Mr. Cook says, "Yes, Your Honor." Thank you. She asked the prosecution, the defense, "Will 1 o'clock on Friday?" And they said yes. Or I'm sorry, the prosecution, I'm getting them all twisted up. The defense attorney asked the judge, 1 o'clock on Friday, and she said yes. She says, "Will we assemble in person in the courtroom on Friday at 1 p.m. Miss Tramonte, if you could speak with Miss Destiny, I would just like to know a bit of background just from pretrial services." And she says, "Yes, Your Honor." The perspective. "Thank you. We'll reassemble on Friday, and I'll plan to rule on the record on Friday as well. Thank you, everyone. You're adjourned. Thanks for your patience today as well." The prosecution says thank you, and they sign it off in all the appropriate spots. Now, like I said, on this next document, number 68, you can see it's 64 pages. This is mostly what she said, the family, the friends, the employer, and maybe we'll go over it at another time, but not right now, because we want to get to the rest of the answers of this story. So that puts us through on the docket with 67. 68 is the one that we will come back. Yes, that's what I had to pay for them. 69 is attorney appearance for the government. Yes. And then we don't have a 70 over here, but we have a 70 over here, which is the entry for Dante Harper, status hearing to be held. The appearance of the defendant is waived. Jury trial is set for April the 7th of 2025 at 9:30 in the morning. The court will reserve 15 business days for the trial in this matter. Further pretrial dates and filing deadlines will be set closer to trial date. Continued status hearing is set for June the 26th of 2024, and that's going to exclude any time through the trial date of April the 7th, so that way it's good for the speedy trial still. Then on 71, Amante does a joint defense motion for continuance representation of second counsel to Deontay's and Amante. If that makes any sense. Basically, they want to keep having all the extra attorneys. 72, we don't have a 72 over there, so 72 over here basically says the same thing. Says as to Amante, motion hearing set, status hearing held. Jury is set for April the 7th, jury trial. The court's going to reserve 15 business days.
Y'all get over there as a loyalty and betrayal channel, and y'all get in tune with this new murder for hire case in Chicago. They gonna put on Dirk real soon. She got all the details, all the information, man. It's been 2 hours. I gave y'all 2 hours. I got to get a little sleep because I got to be at work in a little while, man. So keep your eyes open. Don't trust none, man. And I'll catch y'all when I catch y'all.